They'll lynch you, but he did, and he laughs at
you are a different kind. You're a different kind of fish.
Hello, West Ham Network. It has been another turbulent 24 hours of transfer window stress, and we're somehow further from signing players than we were yesterday. Today, we are going to be taking a look at the reasons that this transfer window has gone from us all having the highest of hopes to be honest, being absolutely devastated with how it's turned out up to this point. And we're going to be asking the big question, with less than a month until the transfer window closes, how can we actually save our transfer window at this point, and what are the steps that we can take to try and make a difference? So this should have been the season where we stepped our game up. We just won a trophy. We had so much positivity at the club. We were aware that we were losing Rice for so long, and this meant that we should have been ready to buy all of our chosen targets and sell them the dream of like what we were building at the club before our competitors even got a chance of winning any of the players that we were interested in over. Now, this obviously hasn't happened, and there have been a lot of disagreements behind the scenes from what we're hearing. And we know that it was reported the other day that Moyes' targets would be the main focus, but it's now being said that the club may finally move on to Stuyton targets, who would include Fofana, Alvarez and Zakaria. And it's thought that the main reason for this is that Sullivan believes the prices for Moyes' Premier League targets are just too high. So it's not just disagreements between the manager and technical director, but it also seems to be with the owners. And then, of course, yesterday, the Borges deal felt like the final straw to me, and I'm sure it did for a lot of others. And it just dragged on, despite being reported it was essentially done and that the player was away. So it was just taking some time and there was nothing to worry about. And in my head, it was kind of a done deal that was definitely going to happen. And then Ajax have appeared out of nowhere, jumped in at the last moment and stolen him from us. And that seemed to be the only deal that we weren't struggling to get close on. And he looked a really exciting prospect at a fraction of the price of most players. So that was a really big blow again. And now I know a lot of people are saying that we should just sack Moyes, but realistically, it's pretty impossible at this point that we could do that. And then we would then be looking at signing another person, which wouldn't solve the solution that we find ourselves in. And if that was going to happen, it needed doing months ago after the Conference League final. That would have been when we made that decision. So basically, let's take a look back at how we've ended up here. So the first point to chat about, I think, and let us know what you think in the comments. Obviously, this is my opinion, so tis not always correct. But the first point to chat about is how we have actually got to this point. And for me, it definitely looks to be a lack of structure and vision from the very top. And it's obvious that you need a clear vision and a role set out for anybody before bringing them into any business or any job. So how have we hired Stuyton without having the discussion with both him and Moyes as to what their roles will be and what this scenario will look like? It sounds as though it's kind of come as a shock that we've brought them both in and gone, oh, by the way, you need to work together, but you have completely different ideas of what you want to do. And we could have saved a month or more of going back and forth, if the rumours are to be believed, by simply just sorting out how it was going to work before bringing him in and making it clear who was responsible for what, who got the final call with which bits. And then you'd have brought in Stuyton happy that he knew exactly how that was going to work, and there wouldn't have been any surprises or teething issues there. So that's obviously, we could have created a scenario from the beginning that worked, or decided not to waste time and money by bringing Tim Stuyton in if we had no intention of actually using him properly, or if we realised that it wasn't going to work with how we wanted to approach things. And if we are sticking with Moyes, you can't tell him that he's got absolutely zero input in terms of which players he has to make work, because that has never worked in any football club anywhere, to tell a manager that they have to play with players that are a completely different style to them. That's where you either back the manager or sack them, in my opinion. And where, if we have lost trust in Moyes and we're trying to build a team which will work with or without Moyes, which definitely looks like the most likely scenario at the moment, then we should have got rid of him, to be honest, because you can't keep someone around but tell them that they need to make something happen with a vision that is literally not how they play football at all. And simply put, the manager and the technical director, they've got to work as a team. Like, there's no option around that, because they work together to identify targets, bring them in, and then make them work on the pitch with the actual structure that we want to play with. So how we've ended up with two people on completely different pages with completely different visions, and the owners not putting their foot down so that we can just get on with business in terms of saying, like, look, this is where your responsibilities lie. This is where we're going to draw the line. You choose this. If we don't get these targets, we go for those ones. I don't quite understand. But moving on from all of that, at this point, what can we actually do to save the situation and to take a look at what we can actually fix at this point? So the first thing I think we need to sort out, correct me if you think I'm wrong, but is who's in charge and who's in charge of what. We need to give everyone set responsibilities and know exactly who calls the shots with choosing players. If Stuyton's coming up with a list of players and Moyes has already approached all of his and they've all said no, then surely we go with Stuyton's now and we just go all out. And then we need to be able to go all in for the players that we're saying that we want, but we need to know which one's the priority. And then we get those over the line as soon as possible. And we need to do everything we can to avoid lengthy negotiations and make a point that we're not just dipping our toes in the water with everyone, but have a clear target of saying, like, you are our preferred central midfielder. We like that you do this, this, and this. Like, we want you. Let's get this done. Rather than sort of approaching 6 or 7, and everyone knows we've approached 6 or 7 because it's in the media, and they all know that they can push their price up a bit and drag it along and see if another club comes in for them. So I think that's a big step in terms of being able to get the deals done quickly and stopping other teams coming in for players that we want. And the other thing is to tempt the players so that they actually push their clubs to let them come to us. Other teams manage to get in players' heads enough to the point where they push the move from their side. So why can't we do this as well? I don't see any reason why we couldn't. And obviously, the reason to do this, we need to be able to tell them what we can offer them and the opportunities that they'll get and what they will be doing at the club and the vision that we have for them, because we need them to be putting pressure on from their side as well. But again, this relies on us knowing how we're going to use a player and not just saying, look, we really like you, but we can't guarantee you first team football and you might play or you might not play. And all these uncertainties, they're not going to leave a player feeling wanted, are they? And they're definitely not going to leave a player pushing to desperately come to West Ham. Hence why they might then want to drag on the deal, see if anyone else comes in for them. So I think we might be making it harder for ourselves by going in for lots of players. I'm not saying we shouldn't behind the scenes, but when it comes out in the media that we are literally flirting with 7 central midfielders, obviously it doesn't leave any of them feeling special or that they're actually an important part of our plans, which you've got to do. If you want to encourage a player that they are what you need, then you've got to make them feel like that. And the other thing is obviously having limits to what we'd be willing to spend on each priority. So, for example, like I said yesterday, most people on Twitter said that we should walk away if Southampton wanted more than 20-25 million for James Ward-Prowse. But if he is the player that we think we need, that fits perfectly into the system that we want to play with next season, then we need to already have a figure in our heads for how much we're willing to pay over the odds to get the deal done. So there's no dithering around, just quick business, no time to waste, straight back in with another offer, because time is now of the essence. And again, it's got to be done with structure and an idea of how all these players fit together, and not just a random player that we're like, yeah, he's a good midfielder, but then we don't know how he fits and who's playing around him. So this is another thing that will get players wanting to come to West Ham, a vision of where we're heading and how they fit into the squad. You've got to have like if you're trying to apply for a job and they're like, yeah, we don't really know what we're doing this year, but we think you're really good at what you do, versus someone that's like, this is the most amazing project and we want you to do this and like you'll lead on that. Obviously, it's a bigger incentive to come. So hopefully we can start to do that. And finally, I think the other missing puzzle piece, we really don't want any more players leaving if we can help it. I know that we may well have players that are desperate to leave at this point, and that might not be able to be saved. But if it's this difficult for us to bring players in that will work for us next season, we can't be losing players that we know are half decent in our squad, because we won't find a replacement without spending a fortune. And if it's going to take precious time away from us signing players in priority positions, this is time that we literally do not have at the moment. So we can't. I want people to stop leaving. And the other thing is, the more people that leave, the more scary it looks to people that are coming in, because they don't know what the team looks like. They don't know what style of play we're going to have. They don't know whether we're going to be like attacking, defensive. They don't know anything. And yeah, having loads of outgoing players is not a good look for anyone that you're trying to say, look, we're an up and coming project and you should definitely come work for us. So to summarise, we should be an exciting prospect. We have Europa League football. We've got the chance to improve our performance in the Premier League next season. And if we can get 1 or 2 solid signings over the line, we're going to become a more exciting project, which should make it easier to then negotiate with potential signings. It's kind of like a landslide thing where if you've got loads and loads of players leaving, it looks scary as anything to come to us. But if you've got loads of players coming in, suddenly people go, oh, okay, like they're wanting to change things and this could be interesting. So hopefully we can make this happen. This is obviously, if I was like in charge of the club, what I would basically do. Might be easier said than done. However, this is my opinions. Let us know, like I said, in the comments, because I'm interested to what you all think. And we have got just under 1 month to sort this out. Otherwise, we are going to be facing some serious challenges going into the season. And it's absolutely mad that with 10 days till the season starts, we are saying this, but it's now or never. So those are my thoughts with how I think that we should approach the final month of the transfer window. Essentially, we need to start again, literally regroup. We need to get organised. We need to approach players in a more strategic way. And we need to wow the players. And we need to have a vision that we can actually share with these people that we're trying to get on board and say, like, this is what we want and this is where we're going. And this is why you need to be part of it. I think that's the only thing we can do at this point to save the transfer window. But let us know what you think in the comments and what you would do to change the outlook of this transfer window at this point. So like realistically, like maybe you think we can sack Moyes realistically and get someone else in, but what are the actual steps that you would take to try and change this so that we go into the Premier League season with a stronger side? And obviously we know that it was difficult last season because we did get quite a few signings in late, and then it's difficult to bed players in when they haven't had a pre-season, because obviously it's scary to take risks in the Premier League. They take time to settle, especially if they've come from another league. Like, it's a completely different style of play. For some players, it's a bit of a shock with how physical it is. Like, even looking back at when we signed Paqueta, he was getting muscled off the ball left, right and centre for the first bit of the season. Then he got used to it. And if he'd had a pre-season playing against Premier League sides, perhaps it wouldn't have been as much of a shock. But yeah, you need time with these players. So it's going to be a difficult one to get them in. And then we need to get them bedded into the team. But I believe there is still hope, but we need to get work done now, because if we don't get signings, I do not know what this season looks like at all. So yeah, there's work to be done. It's disappointing that we don't have new signings with a pre-season behind them, but there are still opportunities to build a stronger side and improve our performances based on where we are at the moment. But we have to act now, right now, like now. By the time this video goes live, we need to have acted. I know as well that there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes. I have had a bit of an insight into how agents work and how clubs work and how many things in a deal can change at the last minute. So I'm under no illusions that it's never as easy. Like, when you hear about players coming out of nowhere, like, players are aware that there may well be, for example, Borges may well be aware that Ajax have said, look, there's a chance we might come in for you, and they will then long out deals. I'm not saying this happened with the Borges deal, but it does happen very often that players will long out negotiations in case something better comes along. But this is where I think as a club, you have to go in and give them no opportunity. Like, it's now or never. Do you want us or not? Because if not, we'll move on. We'll go elsewhere, but no messing around. So yeah, there we go. Can we turn this around? I really, really hope so, because otherwise we have a bleak season ahead. But let us know your thoughts in the comments. If you haven't already, please do subscribe. This is my natter. I haven't done one of these really before, but there we have it. Hope you didn't hate it. Until next time, have a great one. And of course, come on, you Irons.